labeled the self-care generation. You hear people preach to put yourself first, to do what's best for you, and if that means cutting someone out of your life who wronged you, more power to you. But are we confusing self-empowerment with selfishness and resentment? My next guest believes we're often missing a fundamental part of the formula for healthy family relationships, and that is forgiveness. Studio 5 parenting contributor Heather Johnson is here to explain, and I'm just going to settle in for what I know is going to be a mind-opening conversation, because I would never think, Heather, to make that connection. Self-care, forgiveness, you don't often hear those in the same conversation.
Yeah, we don't, and what we don't realize is the best self-care we can give ourselves is to forgive other people. Right? We think of forgiveness as being something that someone else needs to earn, or someone else needs to acknowledge their wrongdoing so that we give it to them. Self-care is what we do for ourselves, right? Obviously, and forgiveness is something that we can put there.
Well, you say, in fact, forgiveness lies at the heart, this is a quote, at the heart of successful marriages and successful families. What do you see happen when family members don't forgive?
You actually can't be totally connected to someone when you don't forgive them, right? We also know that you can't genuinely or really love someone if you don't forgive them. Those things are always interchangeable. When we're not connected with someone because we haven't forgiven and we build walls, there's resentment. These actions and feelings keep two people apart. They keep us from ever fully connecting. Not to mention we lose hope when we don't forgive other people in our relationships and in our family. Hope in our ability to be connected, but hope in our ability to move forward and feel happy and joy and successful. And it's really cool because we used to only look at forgiveness from a religious standpoint. And more recently, in the last probably 20 years, we're looking at it no matter your religion and recognizing that this has nothing to do with religion.
This is a good human practice.
This is a human practice.
Yeah.
And so when we put this in place, we also see that it impacts our health. So people who don't forgive have poor health, right? We've got that direct correlation between a willingness to take care of ourselves by forgiving others and recognizing that they're people too, and also us feeling good, right? Feeling healthy. So it's a really big deal. It's a big deal.
Isn't that fascinating? If you're of faith, a religious person, you know, you believe, at least that's at the core of one of the reasons we're here. If you're not, you're at least seeing that physically manifest. So it underscores the importance of this for everybody.
For everyone. And even again, that connection, it's so important to realize when I don't forgive, I start putting up those walls. I create a victim and a villain standpoint. When I don't forgive, I blind myself from being able to see my negative contributions that I need to change or be humble in. When all of those things start to happen, we're disconnected. It doesn't matter what religion you are. We're disconnected from people we say we love. So if there's a gift you want to give your family, forgive them, all of them, not just your immediate family. Forgive your sister-in-law, forgive your mother-in-law, forgive everyone, and you will see there is so much growth that comes to us individually when we forgive.
Let's talk about how we can become more forgiving people, or more specifically, forgiving family members. You say it starts by changing our thoughts.
It does. It starts right with our thinking. Oftentimes we have these thoughts where everything we're thinking about towards someone else is a way to exonerate ourselves, like how can I free myself up? Or we're constantly thinking in ways where we want to find absolute truth, where I need to know exactly how it went down, and I need to know my sister-in-law's intent, and I need to know why she said it and how she said it if I'm going to offer forgiveness.
We're a detective.
We have to change that thinking, right? We have to change that thinking. We won't actually ever know the exact truth of a situation, ever. It doesn't matter how long you and your husband are married, you won't know his heart and mind in its entirety, ever. And so this idea that we're seeking some sort of truth that we can't ever get, it really does block our ability to forgive. So instead, we want to work to view other people in a way that lines up with who we want to be. Because the way I view someone then in turn impacts how I treat them. And so my view of someone and my view of what they've done or said or how they've treated me needs to line up in how and who I want to be.
There's the self-care.
Not if they've done it right or meant it or didn't mean it.
Right, but there it comes back to how I want to feel, how I want to live, how I want to be, how I want to love.
And how I want to take care of me. Yep, all of that.
You also want us to stop relying on memory loss. What do you mean here?
Yeah, we're really quick to think that memory loss is a good substitute for forgiveness, that we'll forget. And it isn't. Relationships stay strong because we forgive, not because we forget. And oftentimes that forgetting isn't something we would want anyway. No, the things that I can remember, even after I've forgiven, allow me to not make same mistakes again.
Sure.
They allow me to be prepared for new situations that show up and kind of repeat themselves. There are benefits to a remembering process, but relationships don't stay strong because we forget. So that being our mode of forgiveness, we sometimes interchange those two and go, oh, well, I'll forget about it. No. You need to forgive it, not forget about it.
We often describe forgiveness. You talked about it being a religious practice initially, but we kind of treat it as an emotion or an experience. Like, this is a feeling that's going to wash over me, and I'm going to be calm and at peace with those in my world. You say forgiveness is an action.
It is an action. We have to do something in order to forgive. And what we don't realize is sometimes we'll say, oh, I forgive you, but our actions do not demonstrate that, right? And so we look at our kids and say, oh, I forgive you for whatever the mess is, or whatever the grade is, or whatever the disrespect. But then we bring it up all the time. Or then we're unkind in our treatment, or we're impatient, or we withhold love. Those are all actions. And so to genuinely forgive, we need to act, right? We need to put that in place. And we need to know that we are not acting because someone else has necessarily earned it. We hold on to forgiveness, and it's as soon as you've earned my forgiveness, then I'll give it.
Or as, like you said, as soon as I've figured it out, or as soon as I've, reconciled the situation.
Yeah, then I'll offer it to you.
Yeah.
I need to act differently towards someone because it represents who I want to be and how I show up and how I want to handle a situation, not because someone else has earned it. That is not where my energy should go. It should be in who I want to be in these family relationships.
You're advising us to say the A word?
Yes.
I've got FCC guidelines in my head, so you better hurry and clarify.
Apologize. That's our A word. We are so scared of this word. We're scared to use it ourselves. When we go to use it, we tend to think it means we're weak, or we tend to think if I apologize, it's letting you think that what you did is okay. That is not what using the word apologize is. Apologize is a humble space. It's a strong space. It's a space of recognition where I take a step back and I see what my contributions might be. Yeah. And so we can't be afraid of the A word.
I found myself saying to my 6-year-old after a certain incident with her 4-year-old brother the other day, and I hadn't even premeditated this, but out of my mouth came, she said, I already said I'm sorry today. I've already said I'm sorry, and I said, I'm sorry is one of the top 2 phrases we say the most of in this house. And she said, what's the other one? I said, I love you. And it came out unintentionally, but I thought, yeah, those are the 2 phrases I'd like to say the most often.
Yeah, and to realize, again, that we can't really love unless we forgive, unless we offer those things up. The other thing about using an apology, there's a recognition there so that we're not self-deceived. Self-deception, again, is something that we're studying more and more, and it's an inability to see that we have a problem or that we contribute negatively. And so anytime we're unwilling or not humble enough, we find ourselves in a place where we don't recognize our contributions, and we make them, right? My husband and I had this experience recently. We were talking about something, and he offered up an opinion, and I had some questions. I wanted more information. Yeah. And it wasn't anything but this conversation, but he made a comment about how sometimes when I ask those questions, it leaves him feeling like I don't trust him. Right? And even as, we parted ways and went to get kids in bed and things, I thought, well, of course I trust you. Of course, that's never my intent. But as I thought about it the next couple of days, I started to realize, man, I could be making that contribution. Maybe when I sometimes ask those questions, it could put him in a position where he feels some of those things. And so for me to take a step back and not be deceived enough to think, oh, no. Everything I hand his direction is always just so clean. That's not true. And so as I recognize that, I'm able to say, hey, I'm sorry, maybe there's a different approach I could take. Or let's have a discussion about trust. If I'm self-deceived, I can't do those things.
I love that.
Right? I can't do those.
We've got a quick 30 seconds. You say space is not an excuse to not forgive.
It isn't. And sometimes we use it as an excuse.
Like distance?
Distance. We make space between our relationships or between us and people that we have a hard time with. And we use that as an excuse. We also use it, again, to say, well, I've forgiven you, there's space. But oftentimes that's not really what's happening. We take the space and we think all the really uncomfortable things about that person while we're taking space. Right? So you can have space, and you also need to have love and compassion.
It kind of forces us to re-examine our boundaries a little bit. There's a word I'm also coming to kind of have some negative feelings about boundaries, but you have to look at those. I mean, certainly are healthy boundaries to be set, and we acknowledge that, but what I hear you say is don't cut someone out just because of a misstep or a poor behavior.
And we're not talking, there are situations in families.
Of course.
We're not looking at those things. Those are not minor, those are the minority.
Yes.
Most situations can be forgiven through. I would even venture to say all, because no matter the transgression, no matter the distance, we still have to forgive in order to be healthy.
I love this.
So this is about us. You want to talk self-care? Forgive people. You'll feel great.
Well said, Heather. Thank you so much. Heather coaches and counsels families and individuals. You can find her contact information on our website,